Hey guys, welcome to the Save Continue podcast where we get together and talk about video games and game related stuff. I'm Shanae. As always, with me is Tommy
Hello.
and Ryan Robinson.
Hi.
So guys, uh, what's the next game that y'all are looking forward to playing? Not even like something that you're super hyped about, but like the next game on your list that you haven't played yet.
Like, not necessarily something new, just like the next game I'm going to play.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a hard one.
Mm.
Like, so I just beat Spelunky for the first time.
Good job.
Yeah, I saw
Like-
that. Congrats.
Thank you. I mean, I beat the normal run. I haven't done like the hard run, right? So, like, my next thing is
It
like,
doesn't matter. You did it.
yeah, well, sure. But my next thing is like either I'm going to do like the proper, like, most difficult run for Spelunky, or maybe play Spelunky 2. Like, I've had Spelunky 2 for a long time. I don't know. We'll see.
What about you, Ryan?
Well, I think I'm more looking at what's coming out, and it's kind of a tie for me right now.
Dead Space. Boom. Dead Space, right?
I was actually not even thinking of Dead Space, but that is actually true.
Just because it's like what, next week, something like that?
Yeah, wow, it really crept up on me.
Yeah.
But
Hi, movies.
but I think the one that's like probably at the forefront of my mind right now, well, the two honestly are Street Fighter 6 and this new Monster Hunter type game called Wild Hearts. I'm really excited about that. So
Nice. After God of War, I've been thinking about like playing Pokemon Violet. And I think that like it's gonna be a good choice because like this is such a story-driven game. I think it'll. Part of me kind of misses like the grindy repetitiveness of
Yeah.
something. I don't know. Like I kind of cut down a little bit on God of War just because like I haven't had the bandwidth to really put a. I got really sick for a couple days, but I haven't had the bandwidth to like be invested in something and pay attention to it.
Sure.
I want like an hour to go by and be like, hey, am I just doing the exact same thing?
sure, yeah, I get that.
But yeah, so I'm thinking Pokemon Violet, but also I've been thinking about maybe going back to Atomies as well. But I don't know. I've been comfort watching some TV shows, so I think that's just making me nostalgic for something just nice and simple.
Yeah.
I just don't know when I'll get a used copy of Hogwarts Legacy. But whatever I'm playing then, I will drop to play
When does
that
it
game.
come out?
I think last announcement thing I saw was like this year.
Yeah.
And I think the last one let's see real quick. Release date. It says initial release date's February 2023.
Oh, it's right around the corner.
Yep.
But let's see if that's even.
Well, PlayStation has it listed at February 9th, so
I see it as February 10th on a lot of stuff, so I don't know. But yeah, so it's right around the corner. So that's also another reason why I don't really want to play like a super involved game. It's just like because I know I'm gonna drop it for Hogwarts because I never got a letter. I want to go to that fucking school. I want to be magic.
I think it might have been aged out by now, homie.
Yeah.
So
They might like invite you there as the janitor, you know?
yeah, you might.
I don't care.
Maybe you can be an
Even
honorary
though-
wizard or some shit.
Well, I mean, the only janitor they have there is the one guy who's like can't do magic. So they could hire somebody that just like with a flick of the wand can like I don't know clean all the mud from the stuff. But instead they make this guy mop everything.
Yeah.
That'll be your job
Oh.
now.
But yeah, and that'll be me. And he gets a cat too. So like, I could probably bring Luna.
No, Luna's not a cat.
They don't allow dogs at school.
Yeah, sorry.
Get
Dogs
her-
aren't very magical animals, you know.
I'll get her like a service dog vest. They can't question me then.
That's true.
But yeah, I don't know. Besides that game, I haven't really been paying attention to a whole lot of stuff. There are like some things that have been catching my eye, and then also since me and Berto like do that Steam share thing, and like he's like pretty well. Actually, he had to restart his second playthrough because came across a glitch that like the only thing to do is like, and it corrupts like all the save data from that game. So he had to restart it again, but he's almost done with the second playthrough. And so I've been looking at Cyberpunk 2, which I know is the opposite of like what I just said, but he's making it look good.
Yeah, you gotta make it look good.
Shanae, I thought about you earlier this week. I don't really know why, but
Because we're
You-
friends.
you remember-
We're friends.
no,
'Cause
no,
we're
no.
friends.
But like, because
I don't
like
know why
think,
I care
think
about
the
you,
show
or,
and
like-
you know, you'd been getting more into Fire Emblem the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And like, did you ever end up playing Tokyo Mirage Sessions?
Hmm.
No.
I know what it is, but like no.
Yeah, that's because it's, you know, you like the Fire Emblem and the Persona now. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Give me them story about them peoples. Well, I also liked Fire Emblem before. I just like I think I had already like finished the Fire Emblem phase before I had started the show because
Yeah.
Awakening had come out before we started recording. So
oh yeah, Awakening came out way before.
yeah. Well, I'm
But-
bad with dates and time. So I was like last time I got really into Fire Emblem was like Fire Emblem Awakening. And then me and Berto
Yeah.
both had copies and we're playing. But yeah,
Yeah, but then you got into Persona and all that, you know.
I did. I sometimes I still like I don't know if this happens to you, Ryan, but sometimes I'm still like if I hear like a song that sounds like a Persona song, I'm like, I should play that game. I should play like Persona. I have it here.
So Persona is probably, while it is my favorite, well, specifically Persona 5 is at this point my
That's
favorite.
what I'm speaking about as
Yeah.
well. It's Persona
Uh,
5.
That's at this point in my life is my favorite JRPG that I've ever played. Fantastic game. I loved it, every minute of it. That being said, I will probably never play it again. I've done all the things to do.
I mean, you've
story.
talked plenty of times
the
about not
feelings.
playing old games.
Well, it's not even just old games. It's just that like I feel like it serves for me as a very singular experience, and I feel like with the way that story kind of resonated with me, I think I would get diminishing returns on it. And
Counterpoint, New Game Plus.
does New Game Plus change the story?
Why don't you do it and find out?
I'm not doing that, Shanae. This
What about Royal? Did you play Royal?
yeah, that's the one I played.
Oh, okay.
So
No, I played the regular Persona 5 and then I played Royal.
Yeah, well, Shanae, Persona 3 and 4 will be on PlayStation soon.
yeah, you can
Yeah,
play those.
I've been seeing a lot of actually like TikTok stuff about them, and I'm like, I should play more Persona games.
Yeah, just 4.
My
Not
Kaylee,
3.
Kaylee got me
3's fine.
the soundtrack on vinyl for my birthday.
Nice. Yeah, I
For
remember.
Persona 3, I mean. That's pretty cool. Just thought I'd share that because seemed pertinent.
It was nice. Yeah, no, it was a nice gift.
Yeah.
But this week, though, we are going to talk about character progression.
Yeah.
And obviously, like for like most games, it is like a big part of the gameplay, and particularly the ones that like are like the action adventure that I tend to go toward if I'm not playing Atomi games. And yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like I was talking about this for the show, but like not necessarily leveling, though I have like spoken before on the show. Like I really enjoy it more with like levels if you feel like you actually are like like getting stronger in it. Because there's so many games that if you level up, like you're playing enemies that are also leveling up, so it never really feels like you are getting powerful or get to like feel cool. Like you don't have that moment where you're playing enemies that are just getting decimated by you, but then like they get rough, like harder. Like I want
Oh.
that like ebb and flow and feel like I'm actually like progressing and not that it's just giving me a number to
Yeah.
like
I
path.
fucking hate level scaling. Like, yeah, we've talked about that before.
Because I feel like with level scaling, what's the point of leveling?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because if they're always as strong as me, then what's the point of getting stronger? You know what I mean? Turn that shit off. That's why whenever it's an option in a game, I turn it off. Because if I want to get overpowered, then let me do that. So
Yeah, also like because I have been playing God of War, and it is like one of those. So like I mean, it's a game, or in that one, like your character progression is like you unlocking and then leveling up skills, like certain skills. If you've done them enough,
Yeah.
then like you can then upgrade that skill, and it'll give you options like if it's a like melee move, like a stun option, or like does more damage, or like gives you like or takes off time from a cooldown.
yeah,
So it's really like that's just kind of it. And also like and I with God of War, at least God of War Ragnarok, it is like level scaling, so it just the I know for the most part. I mean like the worlds like have their like level or like kind of like skill caps and like how easy they are, but very rarely unless like I like get a cool combo chain down, do I really feel like good or like really satisfied with the progression? But also like that particular game, I don't necessarily need to because it is like more story based. So that's what's upholding it rather than feeling powerful with my character. Because it already
right.
starts off like cool as shit, at least in my opinion. Because I like obviously like this character.
Mm-hmm.
So that one and the same, and it was like obviously very similar with the first God of War, the newer franchise. This one, you do get a cool new spear, which like is a fun thing because you get to talk about how like used spears in the original God of War games.
Right.
So that's cool. It's just getting items, but like also what I talked about before in another show too, like talking about with Pokemon, how Arceus like instead of like leveling up by getting gym badges, it's by like getting a certain amount of Pokédex filled. And I don't know, I was just thinking about, same franchise, like different leveling methods, and sometimes it's really nice and improved upon. You've spoken before about Assassin's Creed, Ryan, about how Origins really changed up how you skilled. And yeah.
Yeah. And I think that I think with Assassin's Creed specifically, I think that like that's another game where, especially considering like how long these games have gotten over the last few years, I think that like that progression is kind of something that does definitely help you to stay engaged, because those older games, while they had like different like unlocks with like gadgets and weapons and whatnot, they didn't have like new skills for you to unlock per se. So I think that if if they had stayed with that formula with these games, like capping out at over like 150 hours or in a couple of cases, I think it would start to feel a little stale. So having the ability to like unlock these different skills and kind of change up how you play the game over the time that you're playing it, I think kind of is really important to the franchise, considering like where it is right now, and has kept me kind of playing these games well past like the hour count of those older games because of it.
'Cause it seems because I played Assassin's Creed 1, 2, 3, Revelations and Brotherhood, I think.
Yeah.
I never beat Revelations or Brotherhood. And then by Black Flag, I was done for the most part. I was burnt out. Like I wasn't really interested in the franchise. So I do think like especially that one where before the innovations have always been just kind of like besides 1 to 2 where they added a much larger gameplay.
Mhm.
Um the Assassin's Creed mainly like just like is location and weapon based
Yeah.
rather than like actual skills.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they like decided to do something different.
Yeah, and also the weapon types are like more varied than they were in the like original like trilogy or whatever you want to call it. Um, because of that, like that kind of changes how you engage in different fights and everything. So like you can kind of choose weapons to suit your play style which is I think kind of important too. So, yeah, I think
Like
that's
it also goes along brand with their whole thing, like since the second one of like, hey, you can do these assassinations in a bunch of different ways.
yeah,
Look what they all did. But a lot of them are just really hard to be varied.
yeah.
Like there's just like an obvious solution that like is the easiest one.
Yeah. I do think that they've gotten a little bit more open ended than than the previous entries. But ultimately, I do also think that because like the games now, like Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla all have this thing where you're hunting these people on this. I don't know what you want to call it. There's like a tree of people, and you're like kind of descending down the tree, like hunting all these different
A
people.
hit list.
It's, I guess, sure. It's like kind of like a branching thing. It's whatever, but they all have that thing, and basically all of those assassinations kind of boil down to kind of completing them the same way, which is like sneak up on the guy from the rafters and then jump down on him, which is like has kind of been the series trademark since its inception. So at the end of the day, it does kind of boil down to that. But I think like what's more important is what happens between those assassinations, with the gameplay loop. That kind of keeps it.
I
interesting.
mean, it's not Hitman, right? Like,
yeah, like in Hitman is like a lot more open ended, especially like especially a Hitman 3. It's a lot more open ended and like allowing you to be creative with like how you do different things. So I don't think it's ever going to be at that point. I think, but I think that also, ironically, is not necessarily the focus. But
yeah, it's different audiences.
yeah.
Like, what do you think of like creative character progression? What's popping in your head today?
There's like a few that I really, really love that like, but at the same time, like there's things I dislike about them, like the Metroid series and even the Castlevania, the Igarashi Castlevania games are guilty of like, at the beginning of the game, something happens and you lose all your fucking powers.
Yeah,
like I don't like that. I understand why that's the case, right?
Sure.
But like, it doesn't always need to be the case. Like with Metroid, it doesn't make much sense,
Yeah.
Like it just every single time, right?
Yeah, get a better.
But but that character progression in that style of game, I really love because like it is tied to the level design of the game.
Sure.
It's like a cohesive thing, and I really do like that. I think like there's, like in Symphony of the Night, when you first start the game, Alucard's all badass, and then Shaft takes away all your powers, right? And I'm like, that's okay. This is our first game with the character. We need reasons to be collecting these power-ups and all that. That I don't mind so much. But like when it's just game after game after game, Samus is losing her fucking tools.
Yeah.
It's kind of
it's
together,
just
Samus.
I mean, right, like I understand why it's got to be there. Otherwise, you have no game.
Right.
But I also really love Diablo's character progression, specifically Diablo 2, but really just Diablo in general. And I'm sure someone will correct me and tell me that some games did it beforehand, but like it's the earliest example for me where like you have things like, you've got a skill tree, which tons of games have, but what I like about Diablo's skill tree is it's an actual tree and you have to make choices and you have to stick to those choices.
Right.
Whereas Diablo 3,
they don't let you respec or anything, right?
in Diablo 2, I think you have an opportunity to respec once per playthrough.
Okay.
And it's not easy to do, along with things like rune words, like you very much feel like the build is your own, and that adds replayability to even the same class. You can play the same class over and over again and play it differently.
Right.
But like also like the dumb things like armor changing character appearance. I can't think I haven't played a game before Diablo that did that.
Sure.
You know, not that drastically, right? Where like early in the game you look fucking lame, and like as you progress further and further, you just look more and more badass. You know,
Right.
and like tons of games do that now, but like I don't know. I feel like even some of the games that do it now, a skin feels so insignificant when it's not tied to stats.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
I don't know.
And I think that's something that like that's kind of like Destiny's entire monetization model outside of expansions is
Yeah.
selling you skins for different armor pieces. They call them ornaments, but it's skins. Selling you different skins for armor pieces or weapons, and like I definitely get the appeal of like looking cool, especially in a game that's as social as that one is.
Mhm.
But it just feels like I know that this armor isn't as strong as it implies it is. You know what I mean? Like it's not as
Right.
special as it looks like it is, you know, because I'm basically putting a very like detailed and fancy like disguise on, but like my strength is still what it is. So I think that
Yeah.
like while Destiny does have those moments where you get like an exotic piece of armor that looks particularly badass, it doesn't have anything like Diablo where like you're like decked out in like legendary pieces of armor, and like by the time you get to the Lord of Terror, like your character looks fucking ridiculous, but it's great.
Yeah, and like what's funny about that is like I do like that, but like also I like having transmog in those games,
Sure.
right? Like I remember
Yeah.
playing Fallout 3 and like having some super early game like a fucking sundress and hockey mask,
Hell yeah.
and I thought I looked so fucking cool, but that shit was so useless. That's
Right.
like, well, I
Yeah.
got to go wear this ugly ass thing if I want to get anywhere, you
Yeah.
know?
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, like when I think of skins that actually like show like a progression or like change like the character or gameplay, the only one like the main one I think of is Final Fantasy X too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we've talked about it before, whatever, but just like I like the dress up. I like the dress up. I think it was a really interesting like system. I think it's different. Like I mean, they not like some of them more than others, but they always do uh like change it up like normally with each like numbered
Yeah.
thing. So it's like a
Yeah.
different type of play style, different like type of like progression markers and stats.
Yeah.
I do like that I do really like the whatchamacallit, the things that they do keep the same across the franchise. Like the spells. Like if you are familiar with any Square Enix game that has magic in it, and like they tell you what spell you're learning, you're like, all right, this is like the baby one, this is the mid one, this is the top
I
one.
know what
Got
Fire Aga
it.
does.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Give me those agas. I don't need I don't need those auras.
Yeah.
But
Give me all the Agas.
I do like those. Some of them like I mean a lot of them do have like actual like numbered level stuff.
Yeah.
Like even 10-2 does. But I do think that I do like that the indication of what your like level progression being there, even if it isn't like necessarily like a whole new like attack sequence or animation.
Sure.
That's what
Yeah.
I think that Final Fantasy kind of they they had a really good idea with Final Fantasy X, and I know they do this in 15. I'm struggling to remember if it happens in 13, but the sphere grid from Final Fantasy X, right?
Mhm.
I think that is such a great idea because I think it is another thing to progress those characters in a way that you like, right? It is a way to like sure there's probably a numerically objectively most efficient way to progress everybody through the sphere grid, right? But it also enables you to customize these characters in a way that, you know, clicks with you. And like I think that's really cool, because I think that with a lot of RPGs, the progression for these characters is pretty progression for the characters is linear, right? Like you're just like, you have a specific thing that everybody has all the specific milestones that they're all gonna hit, and they're all just gonna use those things as we progress. So I think that it's really cool to be able to customize every member of the party, because I think that my sphere grid might look different from someone else's. And it's really cool to talk about. It was really cool at the time to talk about how like where my Riku was on the sphere grid versus like where yours was, and like how those gameplay experiences differ because of it.
Have you seen the Path of Exile skill tree?
I have, and I opened it and I immediately fucking closed it, because it's like it's
but it's funny. Like it reminds me so much of what you're saying, and what I was saying with Diablo 2, in that like, you're not expected to fill out that whole thing.
Right.
You couldn't if you wanted to.
Right.
But you pick your own. You pick the titular path, right? Like you pick your own path on that tree of where you want to be. And I like that a lot, and I feel like has been becoming less and less common.
Yeah.
Developers want you to be able to unlock everything, because people want to be able to unlock everything.
Again, like your example of Diablo 3, right?
Mario Odyssey.
Right, but like I feel like that takes away so much from the game.
Yeah.
Another one I really like a lot that I don't think about often anymore, because I haven't played one in a long time, is the progression of the Mega Man games. Like I would like something like that in modern gaming, where it's like, obviously the only thing that you're getting is the powers from the Robot Masters, but like that affects so much of how the rest of the game is played,
right?
And it affects not just the order in which you play the game, but like the difficulty you will have going through the rest of the game.
It's kind of like the inverse of what you were talking about with Symphony of the Night or Metroid, right? Which where like you're starting with like your very basic skills, as opposed to having them stripped away at the beginning and like getting them as you go through the game.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I like that a lot. It's like in all of those games, right? In Metroid games, as well as Mega Man. Like in Mega Man, it really just affects your experience through the game, right? Because you can clear those games with just the pea shooter if you're good enough,
right?
But like in Symphony of the Night and Metroid, Hollow Knight, whatever, like levels are built around those power-ups, So I think both those are really, really cool. Returnal did similar things if we're talking about more recent games.
Yeah.
As far as like character progression that I have really grown tired of over the years, and I'm glad we're seeing less of it, is like, I like these games, mind you, but like the whole Fable or Infamous thing where it's like you can be good or you can be bad, but like
you don't like having a moral compass.
Yeah, but like the bad choice, like it's like, okay, BioWare games did the same thing, right? And it's like, we're going to give you this super difficult decision to make. And the decision is always like, would you like to eat babies or not? Like, it's never a difficult decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's never something like that you have to put actual thought into.
Well, I think
very rarely.
I mean, I constantly have to debate on myself on if I want to resort to cannibalism or not.
But you know what I mean? Like, very rarely is it like an interesting debate. I mean, like internal debate.
I will say that BioWare, I feel like when they started doing like a lot of those games, like KOTOR and stuff, like I do feel like obviously the choices on most of those are pretty obvious, like whether it's like evil or not. But sometimes it's not. And
I mean, BioWare was guilty of doing the whole fucking wheel thing where it's like, well, if you push in this direction, that's the good one, and you push in that direction, it's the bad one. That's how Black and White were going to make it for you, Like, that was BioWare.
Is it red or is it blue?
Yeah.
So, like, I wasn't mad at it, like, in the KOTOR games. I thought it was, like, an
Like I said, I like all those games. All those games I listed, the ones that I played anyway, I enjoyed. But
It
like,
sounds like
don't
you didn't.
but
It
like,
sounds
don't
you didn't
treat
enjoy
me
it
like
at
you're
all.
giving me some difficult
Well,
decision to make.
I think that's the problem, right? Because I think that at out on its because like I think like so many games are still to this day like part of the way that they sell the game is we're a world where every decision you make has a consequence.
Right.
But like the
And that might be true,
yeah, but at
but
the same time,
People love Dragon Age.
but at the same time, I think that the one of the bigger problems with that system is that, as you were saying, Tom, like the choices are so binary, right?
yeah.
And so I think that giving them like if there being some gradients between the two choices, I think like makes it a more interesting proposition, right? And I think
Mhm.
that like even tying to like I think tying that to you know the progression of the story is really important, but like I think that like doing it in a way that is not overt in the way that like a lot of them are is like, look man, you got a guy here, he says he'll never do it again. Are you going to execute him, or are you going to assume that he learned his lesson? And you know which one,
Right.
like regardless of like what you think is the right thing to do in that situation, you know which answer they think is the good one,
Right.
for
The
the
cat
lesson
in
that
story.
worked,
Right.
So,
Yeah. And like, it's just, I don't know, man. It's just so funny. I enjoy all of those games, but from a mindless gameplay standpoint,
yeah.
like there's I 95% of the time I end up playing that type of game somewhere in the middle. And wouldn't it be more interesting for me to be like strong on one side or the other because you gave me interesting choices to pick,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I think honestly, the thinking about games where that choice kind of also it one affects like what powers or abilities you get, but also affects like how your character looks. And like
Sometimes, yeah.
and I'm just like so like for example, Infamous, right? Like
Right.
specifically the first Infamous game, where like the more evil you get, the more dirty Cole's jacket is, and it's just like,
Yeah, yeah,
come
yeah.
on, dude, like, what are we doing? Like,
Or Fable with the horns and the halo and all that
yeah,
shit,
and like,
right?
I just
But,
like because like I think that like especially if we're talking about a game that like specifically if we're talking about like a role playing game, and I have like if I have like this idea or vision of this character in my head, right? And then
Yeah.
you decide like in my head this character looks like this, but they act like this. But if you
Right.
decide for me that because they act like this is how they look,
Right.
it's kind of takes me out of it a little bit, right?
And that does seem to be going away,
Yeah.
right? And writing has gotten a lot better in games, but
Also, in Infamous Second Son, if you choose the evil path and then you go to make out with Fetch, she tells you that foreplay is for the weak, which is one of the most cringe things I've ever heard. So,
okay. All right, Ryan likes foreplay.
well, yes, but also like,
But do you not? Fucking hate foreplay.
he's a very direct person, but you know what I mean. Like, I think that like
Ugh.
there are very stark differences between those two things, and I just wish that it was more interesting to kind of make those choices. So,
Yeah. Go ahead, Tanae.
I mean, do you think that you gravitate more towards as far like if you're playing a game? It's like one that you can measure your progression by what skills you have or by what equipment you have. Because like all of us that have played Breath of the Wild love it, and obviously that one
Right.
like is just equipment based. You basically have all the skills from the beginning.
From the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, and then
As far as like that goes, I'd say my favorite is probably neither of those. It's like my favorite type of
Those
character
two.
progression.
not your favorite type. Which one do you find yourself that you like more?
between
It's an
those two.
either or. It's an either
Between
or
those two?
question,
Yeah.
Thomas.
Yeah, between those two, I guess just stats, honestly. Like equipment is great.
Skills.
Equipment
or
is great,
skills,
but yeah.
Or
Yeah, it'd probably be skills.
all right.
I think skills well, I think about okay, so I think that in the case of like of Borderlands, for example, right, where it's kind of both in a way. Um,
No, she said either or, right?
Okay, but what I'm saying is, I think that even in that scenario, I think it's more skills for me because
Yeah.
I think that part of it is getting a better understanding of how to optimize my use of those skills and being able to chart progress that way too. So I think that skills, like getting new skills, is probably more my thing.
I mean, it's got to be, right? Like, like if you go to like the simplest form, right? Like you can earn provoke, or your sword can get 2 HP, right? Like, what's more interesting,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
or 2 more hit points, you know, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I don't know. So like, not that it's unique, but just because it's what I've been playing. So like with God of War and plenty of other games, like there's areas that you can go to as you're playing, but like you'll have to go back once you get new skills. Like the Lego games have it, like to like get 100% in the area or finish out all the collectibles and stuff. And that's also what's been kind of making me think of this is just because like I don't like some of the areas and I don't want to have to come back. Like if I could just tough it out and it would be like me just against like really hard enemies or like have to like do a different thing. Like later I'll get like a frost thing, but I have this like minor frost thing and I can just like keep hitting them with that and chip away. I much rather have the option for it to be like difficult but doable
Mhm.
than be blocked off completely with like a skill or equipment block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that's not only I mean like
So don't play Metroid then.
I was about to
you
say
know?
that. Like, don't ever play Metroid or your Guacamelees.
Yeah.
Anything with a Metroidvania in the description.
Yeah, and on that, you were talking about possibly playing Fallen Order.
Yeah, don't do that.
You might not like that either.
Yeah, don't do that.
I mean it's not like it doesn't always annoy me, but like it's just more of like I said, I don't like two of the worlds. I find like their design and other stuff boring. I don't really like the
Yeah.
enemies either.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, let me be done.
When it's
All the other stuff I like. I don't want this.
when it's one of those situations where like it's difficult, but like you kind of have the idea like, am I able to do this, or like am I actually not able to do this? And like it's kind of hard to like. So you kind of keep like throwing yourself against it. Like, is it?
Oh man,
Is it actually
there's
impossible, or does it just feel that way?
Like there's a couple where because like it's one of those games where you can change the settings of difficulty throughout it, like, and it's not a deal at all. So there's a couple of them where I'm like, can I beat this if I just like turn it down a little bit?
Yeah.
And I've like
Yeah.
gone and like
Turn it down a
changed
little
the
bit.
settings to like yeah, and then redid it. And then I'm like, oh, I guess I just can't do it yet. And then I just keep avoiding that area. And then I finally like, I'm like, you know, I'm just gonna look it up and see what that fight's like.
Sure.
Like, see what the mechanics like are, what I'm supposed to do. And then I see it, and I've just been doing it like a dumb fucking way the entire time. And then I'm like, oh, I could have beaten this days ago.
That though, Shanae, like what you're saying, you know, like that is that's my favorite kind of progression is where it's like it is. As much as it is character progression, it's more so player progression, right? Like you're just getting better at it.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
Like beating your head against the wall, right? Like when I think about my favorite genres of games, that's what it is. It's fighting games, it's rhythm games, it's, you know, old school FPS, right? Like your only progression, like your progression is just limited by you, you know?
You are your progression.
Yeah. And
yeah,
I think that's fucking awesome.
No, I like that too. It's just on this particular game. It's just like I said, a couple areas, and I have that with some other games too, where I like I just don't like this particular area, and I'm just like, I wish
Yeah.
I could be done with you, but I will see you later.
This just popped into my head, but like, did you do you guys ever like come up on like a really difficult boss fight, like maybe in like the beginning of the game, and the boss absolutely destroys you, and you're like, well, maybe I was supposed to lose that fight, and then a game over screen pops up.
Oh
There's
yeah,
so
yeah.
many- No,
Yeah.
not even just the beginning of the game. I have played like I was like an hour or two into it, and like I like immediately died, and I was like, oh, I guess like I'm not supposed to beat that yet. And then yeah, same thing. And then I'm just like, but like normally what it is like instead of going like left like the game and all the markers said, I went right because I'm like, oh, I can go right.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm supposed to go this way, and then I'm just in the wrong area. That happens unfortunately too often.
That always makes me think of Shovel Knight, Ryan, because like that first level when you fight that knight, you know, like I died immediately the first time I played that game. I was like, oh, well, I'm probably supposed to lose this fight, and then it restarts me at the checkpoint. And I'm like, oh, oh,
Yeah, especially I've had that happen even like once with God of War, and then I just kept trying to fight it, and I was like, you know what? Fuck this. And I did
Yeah.
change it down on a battle I was actually supposed to
You know,
fight, just in a regular story.
What's funny is that like every Soulsborne game starts that way. Like every single one puts you up against a really difficult boss that is supposed to kill you every single time, right at the beginning.
but every single time you can kill them by choosing it out.
Yeah, but the expectation is always that they will kill you.
Yeah.
Which is a really interesting convention to adhere to over the course of like a decade and a half, but it's whatever. So
Do you think the new Armored Core will start that way, Ryan?
Geez, I hope not, considering like how difficult of a time, like, because I remember playing Armored Core on the PS2, and like as someone who does not always grasp the nuances of simulation-based games, if I take a bunch of time to set up my Armored Core and I just get wasted at the beginning, I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I hope that doesn't happen. So I was thinking about the game Remnant from the Ashes and the way that it has its perk system set up, and that there are different perks that unlock based on how you play the game, which I always thought was really interesting because people are going to unlock different perks in different orders, or so maybe you might even go through a whole playthrough without unlocking a perk just because of the way you play the game. Like if you are somebody who dodges more than normal, then you'll get like a perk that like that lessens stamina, the stamina cost of dodging, stuff like that. Or if you're someone who uses handguns all the time, then you'll get a perk that tailors to that. So like different things like that, which is really cool because I remember Kaylee and I were playing that game together, and the list of perks that we had was completely different because she and I played that game so differently. And,
Isn't that like how the Bethesda Softworks games work?
so
I mean, I know you do level up stats individually, but isn't it like the more you use something, the more it goes up?
Yeah, but the thing is, I think what made it so novel to me is that like a lot of the time with Bethesda games, like you have all these you have all the skill trees outlined for you from the beginning. And matter of fact, like, a lot of the time, and at least in the older Elder Scrolls games, you were kind of deciding like what which of those skills will take priority for the character that you're creating. And they kind of made it a little bit more freeform in later games, but those are all like those are all kind of like laid out for you, and it's not so opaque in that way. But I think that with the thing about Remnant is that a lot of the time I'm like, I didn't even know that perk existed. That's wild. Just because like just by virtue of me having played that way, now I know that perk existed. Whereas like someone else might be going through the game, not doing the thing that I'm doing, and like never unlocking that perk, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, like Divinity Original Sin 2, like that happened with some of the stuff. Because like, you know, Berto loved that game, and I ended up playing like a campaign by myself, and he was like, I never even like noticed that area was there. I was like, oh, I was fucking around in this corner, and I just found out that you can go this way.
Yeah.
And then like it unlocks like specific stuff there too. So he's like, I haven't even seen these weapons.
yeah.
But it's on it. Yeah, I will say though, I do like having that variance in the game because then it does make me feel like my own experience is like more special because it is unique, even though like shouldn't feel that way, but like this is mine and it's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
I'm different.
Yeah.
I also like some roguelite progressions, like Vampire Survivors and things like that, or even like Rogue Legacy, where it's like, yeah, you're gonna play this game over and over again, and you're gonna die over and over again, but we're gonna give you just a little bit more every time.
Yeah.
So you're just a little bit better every time. So whether you're actually improving or not, you feel like you're improving, you know? Which I guess is kind of contradictory to what I said earlier about like more skill-based games. But like, yeah, it's fun. I like that.
So I've been playing Chorus recently, well, as scholars refer to it, Chorves. And the way that it handled, like, so it's basically it's funny because when I was listening to Tom talk about like Metroid and Symphony of the Night and the way that they handle like taking your powers away and then kind of giving them back to you over the course of the playthrough. Chorus is basically kind of the same thing, except like she chose to like get rid of her powers because like they tied her to her awful past or whatever. But
Like an X-Men.
Yeah, she just
like an X-Men.
Yeah, she depowered herself.
Yeah.
But like it's basically like you're going to these different, like, as the story progresses, you're going to these different, like, I call them space temples because that's literally what they are. They're just these temples in the middle of space. And
everywhere you look, it's a space temple.
All these space temples, man. But what I like about it, because while it is the same kind of progression as like you might see in like a Metroid or a Castlevania, where like you're getting these powers over time and probably the same order every time, it's the way that like I feel like I'm using those powers is kind of feels a little bit more freeform to me compared to like these other games, because I feel like with like maybe with like with another game I might feel like, well, this is objectively the right skill to be using for this particular enemy or this particular situation. Whereas I honestly feel like it's a little bit more freeform, where I can kind of improvise a little bit, like given what's happening in that specific moment. Like maybe because she has a skill where she can teleport behind another ship to get in range of a good shot, but maybe I find a situation where instead I can kind of strafe around him instead and get a better shot that way, or things like that, right? And I think that like I've been enjoying that, and only because of how fast that game is, it feels really cool to be able to kind of like mix these skills up in a way that like just seems right to me in that moment. And it feels really cool because I was like, I had no idea I was capable of thinking that fast. But it's fun to like see, like, especially like considering how fast the ship is going and how like much stuff is going on around you. It's like really cool to be able to like mix and match the skills as you're playing. And as you get more skills under your belt, it's like it just becomes more layered and complex, and you kind of makes you feel like a badass doing it.
Badass.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's things like that like keep getting new skills interesting, and that like if like instead of like having me like spam the same skill over and over again once I get it, like I'm finding ways to like use not only the new skill but that skill that I got like 10 hours ago, and still being able to implement that effectively.
Like gravitating, I feel like, towards like games where like where besides like grinding, like in like more traditional like RPGs, like you can min max like your skills. Like
Mhm.
so like Persona 5, Fire Emblem, Three Houses, like you have a certain amount of points every day on what actions you can do, and each actions like will benefit different parts of your skills and experience. So there is objectively better days to do stuff. Like there's days where like fishing is better,
Yeah.
planting is better, things like that.
Yeah.
And
But that's more
some
min-maxing like the playthrough than it is your actual skills, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though like it will be more beneficial to you, like min-maxing your skills is like I'm going to focus on this and not on that. You know?
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying, Shanae.
yes.
Shanae, are you there?
Yeah. Oh, did you not hear me?
No.
Yeah, you gotta
Oh.
talk, because like with me being here in China, if you're not talking, I think
I said do you, but obviously that didn't come through.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no.
no, I mean that's fair enough on that. But yeah. I don't know. I kind of already spoke about like all the things that I've just been like casually thinking about this week.
yeah.
Look, I think the correct answer is like character action games. Okay,
I've been
'Cause,
thinking
like,
about Devil May Cry this entire fucking time.
right, because like, look, you depending on the game, right? Bayonetta or Devil May Cry or whatever, right? Like in a lot of them, you unlock new, better equipment.
Right.
And some of them you don't, but a lot of them you do, right? In a lot of them, you unlock skills. In a lot of them, you unlock combo potential, right? Which is also just like player potential. So like you're hitting like all of those marks
Yeah.
in one way or another.
Yeah. Like with Devil May Cry, like the sword is always the sword, but you're like leveling up like different skills for the sword.
Mhm.
Or like maybe you're making the pistol stronger.
Yeah, well, like in Bayonetta, right? There's different equipment that
Yeah.
you can equip that do different things and that work in different ways, and like you learn combos as you go on.
Mhm.
And like I really love in a lot of Platinum games where it's like Nier Automata does a similar thing where it's like you can equip this move set, or like you can equip these weapons, right? For Bayonetta, you can equip weapons to your hands and to your feet,
Hell yeah.
right? And depending on how you equip those, your combos will work differently. But then you can also have like an A set and a B set that you can swap on the fly, similar to Devil May Cry 3,
Hell yeah.
right?
Love that game.
Which like just makes your potential in combat like there is no skill ceiling,
Yeah.
Like yeah.
I won't like this isn't specifically tied to a character progression, but I'm gonna say that playing Devil May Cry 3, watching Dante whip that shotgun around like it was nunchucks is the coolest thing I've ever seen, and has still not got. I've still not topped that. That is still like I played that game.
You didn't play 5 though, right?
No, I didn't play 5. Does he do that in 5?
With a motorcycle.
Now that.
That might top it.
Yeah, now I'm interested. But like I remember I played Devil May Cry 3 around whenever it came out, and the first time I saw Dante taking that shotgun, whipping it around
Yeah.
like nunchucks, I was like, this is the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen. And I would just watch him do that for like 5 minutes at a time. It was just like so fucking cool. Trickster style, baby.
Sure. Yeah, it's so sad that like the proper HD version, like the version that allows you to like switch sets on the fly as opposed to having to go in the menu,
Mm-hmm.
is only the Switch version. You know?
That.
Yeah.
So
Who made that decision? Let's write them an angry email.
Or I fucking Mr. Nintendo,
yeah. Somebody at the Nintendo Society.
Nintendo.
Yeah.
Good one, Shanae.
Thank
But
you.
like the game's old. I'm sure it runs fine on Switch. I would assume it runs fine on Switch, but
Yeah. Yeah, Devil May Cry, and like I think that's probably why I like character action games too, is because like I feel like a lot of the time, like you were saying, Tom, like while you're unlocking combo potential, I think that's scaling up like with my understanding of how to control the character, And so
Mhm.
as I have the potential to like do like maybe longer or more varied combos, like I'm
Yeah.
getting these new skills to go along with that. And so I'm just kind of building on my understanding of it.
Yeah.
Because even other games like Dante's Inferno, Darksiders that are like in that same like similar genre,
Yeah.
like I think those two, like as far as like skilling and leveling up and progressing, like you do feel like cooler when you hit the new combos, when you have the new like death animations.
Yeah. Also, I think Dante's Inferno is a lot cooler than some of the people I've talked to have given it credit for. I love that game. Also, you see,
I love that game, but I hate the progression in that game.
yeah.
I
Well,
think it's one of the worst.
as a consolation, when you beat the game, you get to see Dante's dick at the end. So
Finally.
I do like that
Uh,
game though.
yeah,
Let me ever say, I do like that dick though.
But yeah. And those cutscenes like still look good today.
Yeah. That's a fantastic
You know.
fucking game. I need to play that game again. That game rules.
Recently rewatched the anime.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
And-
that was pretty good.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Well,
That was visceral, wasn't it?
yes, it was.
Do you have any closing thoughts about like character progression or anything you wanted to bring up that we didn't?
Not really, except that I finally beat Spelunky, and the character progression was just me.
Yeah.
Beating, like you guys said, beating my fucking head against the wall
Yeah.
Wait, you know what though?
until I got better at it.
Yeah.
So I will say I think there's a caveat to that, like because I don't like when like the character progression is me and it's only just a learning curve and nothing else after that.
I do
I'm
like
thinking-
that.
I'm thinking specifically Catherine because like basically all the puzzles have like the same like rhythm and feel to it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So like the last half of the game, I was extremely bored because I didn't feel like it ever like changed.
Well, maybe you should play competitive Catherine.
I remember
That is a thing.
I remember.
I'm good on that.
I remember I got stuck on the part in Catherine where the sex monster's chasing after you. And I was playing a little bit too loud, and my mom thought I was watching adult movies.
I feel like the sex monster could be any number of monsters in Catherine.
I was like,
The very first, the first sex monster that you find, like you discover. No, the first sex monster that's chasing after
just
you.
stumble
and
across.
It moans especially loud. So
It does.
it's very loud.
Yeah.
But,
Anything from you, Ryan?
you know, I'm surprised at both of us, Shanae, because neither one of us mentioned River City Ransom in this conversation. But if
You're
if you
right.
play River
You're
City
right.
Ransom, it's a good life lesson because it tells you to read your books, eat nutritious food.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say ramen is like nutritious food.
I mean, you need
It's
your
very nutritional.
It's very nutritional. Make sure you get an extra big Merv burger with fries, and you know,
The nutrition.
and if you're playing the NES version, make sure you write down your password so you don't lose your progress. So
No, I mean, it also tracks with you saying that you prefer more skill based because it is like you just read books and you get skills, but you have to like do a whole bunch of grinding to get the money for those books,
Yeah.
especially if you're playing 2-player.
yeah, because I gotta grind for those skills because Slick is grinding on my girl, you know.
Yeah, he's the slickest of the slick.
Yeah. Oh.
The writing in that game is not good, but it's still held up.
Sure.
But that's our show this week. You can find us on most podcast apps such as like iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. We are also on the YouTube if you want to see our faces and want to see the fact that Ryan's in China this week. Our Discord will be linked. And bye, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.